Hey guys, it's me. It's Mr. G. I am broadcasting quasi-live. I'm live when I'm recording it. I'm not live while you're watching it. My sync as I'm recording is not right. My lips are moving drastically behind what I'm saying when I record, so it's kind of freaking me out because I'm having to look at myself at time delay as I do this. So what are we doing in week 10? Last week we talked about, or I posted stuff about the difficulties in hiring minorities in different groups within law enforcement, right? So you looked at that, and I can tell you, back when I was a chief, it was really hard to get various groups in. I had a pretty half and half balance of black to white employees where I was in South Georgia, but I had a really hard time in the actual patrol type jobs to get a good balance. I normally only averaged about 2 or 3 black male patrol officers. So I had about 30% to 20% maybe, and then sometimes only 10%. Black law enforcement officers, patrol officers in the road. I had black admin officers, but no patrol officers. And then when I was looking for females, out of my whole time being a chief police, I only had one female. She was a white female, and she was only there for about a year, and then she went on to work in forensics in Florida. So, and she was just there to gain experience, but I told her that'd be great. If she wanted to come work, I'd give her that year, and she can go get experience. And it wasn't for my lack of trying to recruit. It was just a lack of desire or interest from the different demographic groups to come employ, or the feeling that if they did apply, they wouldn't get hired, those kind of things. And even though I would try on a regular basis, it was really hard to recruit demographic groups in. So hopefully, what you guys have done, have gone back and you've looked at what we posted, you've done some other research, because what I want you to do is I want you to switch over to the test and graded assignments, because this week you're going to have an assignment based on last week's topic. Now, rolling off of that, what you have to do is, and even when I was with the federal government, what we had targeted recruitment events. And you saw some of that going on with the post I had, where you actually have to go out and target various groups and bring them in for recruitment fairs, those kind of things. You may even do hiring incentives where you offer minority groups a bonus if they come and stay for at least 2 years. We've done some of that. There may be certain language speakers, like you may want Hispanic speaking officers, and you may offer an extra $250 a month if they speak a foreign language that's viable in your area. So let's say you have a large Asian population and you have a Chinese speaker, a Japanese speaker, those kind of things, and you offer a language incentive where as long as they can do interpreting work and keep their language skills up, you're going to pay them an extra bonus every month, those kind of things. I know the agency at one point we're hiring up to $50,000 signing bonus for certain languages. So it can be pretty significant if you're trying to bring those kind of people in. It gets harder when you're looking at females, trying to bring them in, just because it's a hard demographic to recruit into law enforcement. There's a lot of females that just don't want to get into it for various reasons. But that's a hard demographic to try to crack and try to really get into and try to bring in and recruit. So what I want you to do is go and look back into that. Shoot me some ideas. Talk about it on the discussion board. Well, we're going to move into this week. Is mental illness. And we're going to talk about the issues with mental illness, not necessarily law enforcement dealing with mental illness. We're going to get into that later. or people with mental illness. Because I can tell you, when I was in law enforcement, I had regulars that I dealt with. There's probably 10 or 12 people in my population base that comprised a good many of my calls every month, and they were mental health patients I had to deal with on a regular basis. And so I got to learn the mental health industry very well as a chief of police and trying to deal properly with cases of mental illness. But I want to look at mental illness and law enforcement officers. And one of the things I want you to do is I want you to Google this week and look into how many officers commit suicide each year. It's a very large number. In fact, some years the number of officers committing suicide far exceeded the number of officers that were killed in the line of duty. And why is that? Well, you look at the type of lifestyle we lead, especially nowadays where law enforcement officers are hated. That's the difference between law enforcement and fires. Everybody loves to see fire department guys show up, and they're the heroes and all that, and they have their little calendars. Nobody wants to see a cop show up. You're never going to be the hero. Nobody's going to like you, and that's just the way it is. So you're dealing with that. But then you have all the other pressures. We talk about fight and flight. You think about what it does to your body when you go to these really high-stress situations several times a night. The fact that a lot of people work 12-hour shifts, and you may be all night shift, and then next month you may be mids, and then the next you're morning, and it's just your biological clock gets thrown up. You don't get to spend a whole lot of time with family. When things like the hurricane that just happened in Savannah, you got to send your family away while you're staying there protecting the city. So, a lot of these life events, you're not being able to connect with your family and things like that. And so there's a lot of stressors that are caused. PTSD, just regular depression, health issues like high blood pressure. You talk about cops love donuts, so there's a reason for that, because whenever you go through fight and flight, your body starts burning a lot of energy when that adrenaline goes off. And you may get to a point where every time you get a call, regardless of what it is, you're going through fight and flight. So all of a sudden your body's burning all this energy, thinking, okay, I may have to fight, and then it may settle down. And you do that 4 or 5 times a night, then you start craving Cokes, you start craving candy bars, sweets, things like that, because your body's signaling that, hey, you need to repopulate some of that sugar, some of that fat, some of that stuff you use to burn that adrenaline, and you need to get that back in your body so we have it stored up for when you need it again. So that's why you see these police officers that drive patrol for 15, 20 years that are 40, 50, 60 pounds overweight. There's an actual psychological, biological reason behind that, and not just the fact that they're lazy. And there's just a whole slew of issues that go on with mental illness and health conditions with law enforcement. I remember being a chief of police and going to the chiefs conferences, and the biggest conversation was how many chiefs had died since the last conference and what medications you were on. And that's just what is like a bunch of old ladies. Who died? What meds are you on? Okay, great. I'll see you next month or whatever. I want you to look into that. I really want you to dig in that. I want you to watch these videos we posted too, and really pay attention to what they're saying, what they're talking about. And what I want you to walk away from it is eventually, hopefully you guys, some of you guys may be chiefs, some of you guys may be sheriffs, you may be running state offices, federal offices, whatever. I want you to keep in mind that mental illness is not a bad thing. It's a natural thing that's going to happen when you're in law enforcement. It's just going to happen. And the worst thing you can do is put a negative eye on it. I actually had a psychologist that I paid to be on retrainer for my department. We gave him a salary. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was enough every year so that whenever my guys had a problem, they could call him. There was never any requirement to report to me or whatever, unless it was something that could prevent that individual from safely doing their job. Then I asked that psychologist to contact me, and the officers understood that since he was paid by our department, he had that obligation. If there was something where the psychologist said we may need to give him a break for a couple of days or whatever, but it was never a punishment. It was never anything that was going to be demeaning to their career. It was something that I thought, it was just like I've sprained my ankle, I can't walk, I need to be out for a day. It's the same kind of deal. So I want you to look in at, think about that, and start thinking about how would you treat your officers when they start having these kind of conditions, and what kind of program are you going to have in your police department when it comes up. Are you going to allow your people to go see psychologists and not hold them back? Are there certain medications that you're going to say, okay, I'll allow you to take while you're on patrol duty, while you're carrying a weapon? And that's the big thing you have to think about, is these guys are carrying deadly firearms into the public. Where are you going to draw your thresholds? What's going to be your boundary lines? What are going to be your obstacles for your officers when it comes to mental health? So look at it. Go into test for this week and go into test and assignments folder, because you're going to have to respond to something in there for this week. That covers last week. If you have any questions, hit me up. And hit on the discussion board, and y'all talk about it, okay? There's not a lot of work going on the discussion board, and that's 100 points per week. So you guys really need to be on there and talk about it during the week that it occurs, okay? Have any questions, hit me up. Let me know what's going on. We'll talk to you guys later.